And also in Dorset, musicals, zombies, and puppets. It's quite the combination. Do Zombies Dream of Undead Sheep is a show coming to Poole in the new year, which we needed to know a bit more about because the title alone is thoroughly intriguing. Well, earlier, Sam Fraser on BBC Radio Solent asked the man in charge, John Butler, what it's all about.
It is about a zombie uprising or a zombie outbreak, but through that, hopefully looking at a bit about kind of human nature, humanity. How would we react if there actually was a zombie outbreak? What would we do? It's also meant to be entertaining, so it's quite silly. I hope it's quite moving as well in places. Yeah, I'm sort of struggling to sum it up, and I wrote it, which isn't an ideal situation.
Okay, well, you did write it. How did the writing of it come about?
It started sort of accidentally, which is possibly not how most musicals begin, or maybe it is, I don't know. I had sort of got back into performing a bit. I was singing and telling stories at a regular storytelling night in Bridport, which I ended up co-organising with Rose Allwork, another storyteller. And I had been writing little ukulele songs to go with the stories I was telling. And one month's storytelling, I was telling a story which ended with a sort of animated corpse. And my co-organiser was disappointed that there wasn't a cheerful ukulele song to go with it, which I kind of took as a challenge to write one. And after writing it, it was half melodramatic, half kind of cheerful ukulele zombie song. And it sounded to me like it was in a musical, and that made me go, oh, maybe I should write the rest of the musical, and set out to see if I could initially. And it kind of escalated from there, really.
So a little creative challenge.
Yes.
Okay, and now we've got a whole show, and it involves puppets.
It's just one puppet. It's one sort of life-size cardboard cutout puppet. So the show itself has me singing and playing and performing in front of projected drawn animations. So part of the idea of the cardboard cutout puppet is she looks a bit like she's come out of the animations. She sort of matches the animated version of herself. Again, obviously quite ridiculous as well. When you see me and the puppet together, it's obvious that it's a cardboard cutout, but it's sort of playing with that, almost enjoying the ridiculousness, but managing to hopefully convey some slightly more meaningful things along the way as well.
Okay, and who did the animations? Because that's quite an interesting way of expressing the story.
That was essentially, it was all me. So I've written the music, I've composed it, I've recorded it, the backing tracks that I play and sing along with. I drew the animations and animated them using the computer. So they're not as kind of detailed as sort of a lot of modern animation where each individual frame will be drawn and you get that kind of smooth. They're much more sort of clunky. I think I was kind of inspired by, not in terms of theme, but in terms of style, by animations that I watched as a kid, such as sort of Ivor the Engine and Mr. Ben, which were wonderful, but quite basic in terms of animation. But yeah, so they're sort of slightly shonky is the word I use. They're kind of a bit clunky, but I kind of embrace that.
Yeah, and that's kind of part of the charm as well, I guess. I'm getting a strong write the theme tune, sing the theme tune thing going on here. You really are a one-man band, but have other people had any input into the show? Yes.
So initially I sort of wrote it and put it together, and then I played the sort of draft versions of things to some friends, creative friends, to see what they thought. They gave some feedback. I did a sort of unfinished work in progress performance of just the songs in the Woodman pub in Bridport, and that was really interesting. Some of them I could see were going down well. There was a sort of section in the second half where, sort of looking around the audience, I could see it had maybe got a bit too bleak for a while. So I've sort of adjusted that now and softened the bleakness with a bit more humour along the way. I've had some brilliant support from the Lyric Theatre in Bridport, who first of all allowed me to do the premiere performance there, and encouraged me. And since that performance, I've used the Lyric for rehearsal space and had some mentoring from them to sort of develop things a bit more and develop the performance side of things a bit more. Lighthouse in Poole have also been amazingly supportive, again, by giving the space to put it on. They're also going to give me some rehearsal time there to work on developing the kind of lighting scheme to make it much more a full theatrical performance.
More from John Butler and his incredible creative process by the sounds of it. Do zombies dream of undead sheep? At the Lighthouse in Poole on the 7th of February. John was telling Sam how he premiered the show in Bridport, which turned out to be the perfect place to do it.
I think Bridport's odd in some ways in that it's quite a small town and there's quite a lot of creativity there. There's quite a lot of performance and music and storytelling. And the storytelling night I got involved with was originally happening in a small room upstairs in the Beech and Barnacut pub. It was Rose Allwork and Martin Maudsley, who are both local Bridport storytellers. Martin particularly is sort of quite well known in the area and does a lot of storytelling in schools. Rose has sort of worked in various places and is very much part of the sort of Bridport community. It stopped for a while, and part of the reason I ended up co-organising it was having got involved in it and having found that I really liked both listening to stories and getting involved in sort of storytelling for grown-ups, I should say. It was storytelling for grown-ups. I was really sad that it wasn't happening, so I kind of nagged Rose and went, why isn't it happening anymore? And she quite rightly said, well, if you help organise it, then maybe we could start it again. And we moved to the Woodman pub, which had a bit more space and was very, again, welcoming. We got to take over the sort of main pub space once a month, it's quite an interesting dynamic when you're telling stories in the main pub space, because not everyone there knows that's going to be happening or has come there for that. And mostly that was a good thing, because it meant people were introduced to storytelling who wouldn't have expected to, and then they told other people, so it did become quite popular and quite busy. There's sort of a lot of other creativity happening in Bridport. Simultaneously with that, I got involved in this project called Flea, the ukulele opera. That involved sort of circus skills, playing, singing. I was a Portuguese strongman Flea.
I can see that. I can see that. Did you have a leotard, John?
I didn't have a leotard. I had baggy, stripy trousers. Nothing on top apart from a kind of flea shell backpack.
Of course.
That was an amazing experience. There was so much creativity and so much positivity.
So tell me a little bit about your own background, because obviously you've mentioned that this isn't your day job. I think you're in sustainable building.
Yes, quite different.
So where does the creativity come from? You've obviously got some musical stuff going on in your background, and you're Dorset born and bred.
Technically not Dorset born. I was born in London, but we moved to Maiden Newton when I was 2.
That counts.
So as far as my memory is concerned, pretty much Dorset born. I moved away to various places kind of at the end of my teenage years and sort of gradually circled back, I think, and moved back to Bridport when I was 30, I think, or 30 something. But the creativity, I was always into art at school. I kind of did art A-level and foundation studies in art and design at Weymouth College. And musically, I used to play the trumpet. In theory, I still do, but it's sort of got a bit neglected and my trumpet needs a bit of attention.
So as we go forward then, John, can we expect more singing and songwriting and creativity, or more sustainable building?
Well, more of both, hopefully, because both are important to me. I've also been sort of writing non-zombie music as well and trying to sort of put together a kind of non-zombie album.
Something for the living.
Things. Yeah. Well, I hope that the zombie is also for the living, because I'm hoping people come away mostly positive at the end of that.
Before I let you go, I have to ask, you perform as the Woodlouse. Obviously, there's only one question.
Again, very reasonable question. It's a long story. I think I've sort of always had a slight affinity for woodlice, partly because there were just so many of them in the downstairs toilet at my parents' house growing up, so I got to sort of observe them quite a lot. And
friends. Yeah,
kind of. And I did a sort of past life, I did a ceramics degree and was then a potter for a few years. So that's another key part of the creativity. But our kind of pre-course homework for that was to draw from life an animal that we felt represented us, and then present a hat. I think we had to make a hat based on that animal to the class when we first met them. And so choice of animals to draw was slightly limited from life. The woodlice were readily available, and I did feel that affinity, because sometimes they're just sort of happy to be there on display, and other times they'll curl up into a ball and hide away.
I mean, he's not the first creature I'd want to associate myself with, but for his style of comedy, his style of theatre, I think it's probably working quite well for him. John Butler, a.k.a. The Woodlouse, Do Zombies Dream of Undead Sheep, which has had great reviews, by the way, is on at the Lighthouse in Poole on Friday the 7th of February.